Good evening, everyone. Welcome to SCP Radio. Tonight's program features a living room you'll be dying to get into, a motherboard that you simply can't afford, and so many keys. Call in your guesses now on what they unlock for a chance to win tickets for you and one lucky +1 for a luxury cruise to the Bermuda Triangle. And now, a sitting room you don't want to sit in. Being an object class Euclid, SCP-002 resembles a tumorous, fleshy growth with a volume of roughly 60 meters cubed, or 2,000 feet cubed. An iron valve hatch on one side leads to its interior, which appears to be a standard low-rent apartment of modest size. One wall of the room possesses a single window, though no such opening is visible from the exterior. The room contains furniture which, upon close examination, appears to be sculpted bone, woven hair, and various other biological substances produced by the human body. All matter tested thus far show independent or fragmented DNA sequences for each object in the room. Refer to the Mulhausen report for details related to object's discovery. To date, subject has been responsible for the disappearances of 7 personnel. It has also, in its time at the facility, further furnished itself with 2 lamps, a throw rug, a television, a radio, a beanbag chair, 3 books in an unknown language, 4 children's toys, and a small potted plant. Tests with a variety of lab animals, including higher primates, have failed to provoke a response in SCP-002. Cadavers as well failed to produce any effect. Whatever process the subject uses to convert organic matter into furnishings is apparently only facilitated by the introduction of living humans. Mulhausen report. The following is a brief report detailing the discovery of SCP-002. Subject was discovered in a small crater in northern Portugal where it struck the Earth from orbit. Encased in a shell of thick rock, the fleshy exterior of the object was exposed by the impact. A native farmer happened upon the site and reported his findings to the village elder. Subject gained SCP attention when a level 4 agent posted in the area detected a small radioactive anomaly generated by the object. A collection squad of SCP security personnel led by General Mulhausen was immediately dispatched to the area, where they quickly secured the subject in a large container and performed initial testing with subjects recruited from the nearby village. 3 men individually sent into the structure subsequently disappeared. Upon discovering this deadly property of the subject, General Mulhausen issued a Level 4A termination order of any witnesses, roughly 1/3 of the village, to ensure no outside knowledge of the object, and initiated its transport to SCP facility. During preparation for transport, 4 SCP security personnel were inexplicably drawn inside the object, where they too immediately disappeared. Following inspection, it appeared as if the object had grown several new furnishings and was beginning to look like the interior of an apartment room. General Mulhausen immediately ordered the requisition of several Class 3 hazmat suits for the remaining security team members, who proceeded to lift the container onto a waiting freight ship for transport to the SCP containment facility. Following the termination of General Mulhausen, SCP-002 was resecured by SCP staff and brought into special containment and where it currently resides. Staff with clearance below Level 3 have been denied access to the SCP container without prior approval of at least 2 Level 4 staff after the Mulhausen incident. I've been wondering what piece of furniture I would turn into. I think I would make a lovely throw, or perhaps even turn my bones into a coat rack. Let's see if we can gain some further insight, shall we? Tyler Palma leaned on the railing of the freight ship, taking in the droning of the vessel's engine and the salty aftertaste of the air, watching the rich red sun melt into the ocean. He swore to no one in particular. It had been a bad day. Palma was a Foundation containment specialist, and though that usually carried many problems with it, today had shown itself to be particularly troublesome. He had been ordered to permanently leave the comfortable office he'd spent years making into something of a home for himself just so he could work in the field with an active SCP, one that had already killed 7 people in a single day, and then stick with the thing until they finished moving it from rural Portugal to a secure base on the French coast. This SCP-002 was already shaping up to be a handful, and there was also the throbbing bitter pain in the forefront of his mind left from knowing this operation he was in had resulted in the deaths of dozens of innocent people. Even if he was there when it happened, maybe there wouldn't have been anything he could do to stop it. All they've done was take a look at the meteor that had fallen outside the village. Protecting Foundation secrets, the general said. How should they have known the thing was a skip? The general didn't want to take any chances, though, and they were all out of amnestics. Of course, not all this information was officially provided to Dr. Palma, but word gets around fast when everyone's stuck on the same boat. Still, the deaths weighed on him. They were unnecessary, in his opinion. But it wasn't about his opinion, was it? The only opinion that mattered was the general's. General Mulhausen, captain of SCP-002's containment operation, was a strict, severe old man. He was a militaristic relic that had passed his prime ages ago. His insistence that he be referred to as General was one aspect of this, as were his expeditious decisions and the stubbornness with which he upheld them. But he was damn efficient, and everyone knew it. He may cross the line from time to time, but he would get results. It was lunchtime though, so he banished the thoughts and put on a smiling face. Just gotta stay positive. At the mess hall, Dr. Palma found his pal Rob sitting alone with his hamburger. He was older and balding a little, but Dr. Palma felt like he was one of the few sane people working this operation.
Need a partner?
Dr. Palma said as he slid to the opposite side of the table from Rob, putting down a small stack of case reports next to him.
I'm just eating, not ballroom dancing, but sure, have a seat.
Rob said in a friendly, if not dry, tone.
Can you believe this operation? Stuck on a boat with some important anomaly and we can't even see it.
Dr. Palma complained, poking at the food on his tray.
Classified information? Now that's a joke. I'm supposed to keep it contained. Can't do that if you won't let me know what it actually is.
Yeah, they're being real hush-hush about whatever they're keeping down below us. I mean, I don't know a thing about it, and I still have to process the papers for it. It's bullshit.
Rob grumbled. Rob had the stature and dead stare of a man working a job with too many hours and too little explanation. Workplace rumors and secrets, particularly the classified kind, were the only thing that provoked a bit of liveliness in him.
And you know me, gossip's the only thing that keeps me alive. Yet I've heard nothing. It's driving me crazy.
I know.
Dr. Palma agreed.
Tomorrow I should get more details though, since a bunch of people are going to get involved in testing.
Rob told Dr. Palma as he inspected his dry hamburger.
But you got stuck studying it up close, didn't you?
Just overseeing the research. If the general wants to get me up close to this thing, he's going to need to find a new containment specialist fast.
Dr. Palma let out a chuckle.
I don't know what he wants to do with this, but stick any important personnel close to something as dangerous as that, and we'll be abandoning ship faster than the hair abandon your head.
Oh, come on.
Rob rolled his eyes.
That's like a joke Mathilde would say.
That's your daughter, right?
Yeah, I miss her to death.
Rob stared off into the distance. Then, catching himself, slammed his fist against the table.
This damn boat. I miss being home.
I think we all do.
Dr. Palma nodded sympathetically. Dr. Palma thought of home, but his mind came up blank. His parents had never given him a real home, those scumbags. And since he lived at the Foundation, he didn't have much of an actual residence besides what was provided to him. He banished the confusion to focus back on the conversation.
Anyways, you are seeing this thing, right? What it does?
Rob asked, the curious glimmer returning to his eye.
Honestly, not a clue. All they've told me is I gotta transfer across the seas on this heap of metal to beautiful France, land of the snails and the wine.
He mimicked the last part with an atrocious French accent.
At least, until they have the new skip sealed away into a tight metal box where no one will ever have to deal with it again.
So it's small enough to fit in a box?
Rob raised an eyebrow.
No, I don't.
Palma sighed.
You probably know just as much as me right now. I'm overseeing testing in about 2 hours, though.
Dr. Palma grabbed his files as he stood up and prepared to leave.
Sorry, but I gotta go through these case files again before we begin any testing. Take it easy.
Hey, I think I wrote one of those reports.
Rob cranes his head over to snatch a glimpse of the papers. Dr. Palma pressed them close to his chest.
Sorry, need to know basis. Can't have the number cruncher knowing about the person cruncher.
This is literally my job.
Rob said with a bit of hurt in his voice.
But anyways, good luck out there.
Rob called as Palma left the dining facility.
Seriously, don't die.
He was only partially joking, and Dr. Palma knew it. In a cramped metal office, Dr. Palma looked over hastily scrawled notes under a dim, faltering light. The only information available came from the containment team when they weren't overseeing the troubled capture of this thing, so there wasn't much to work with. Different reports pulled together a picture of a ball of flesh, twice as tall as a person, crashing into a field back home in Portugal. Notes from one agent described 3 villagers being ordered to walk one by one into a hole on the side of the ball under threat of gunfire. None of them came back out. Another report documented 7 total deaths from the thing. There was no information on who the other 4 deaths were. Personnel, maybe? Either way, it was impossible to understand with what he had. He dreaded it, but it looked like he'd have to ask the general about it.
So much for a trouble-free voyage.
Dr. Palma muttered to himself.
Discrepancies in the books already. Looks like someone's got to fire Rob.
He let out a small laugh at his own joke, but it didn't alleviate the growing dread of facing the dangerous unknown. He didn't have time to worry about that, though. It was time to begin the testing.
All I'm saying is you should take some pride in your work.
Meh.
In a lab filled with a sickening yellow light, Dr. Palma walked into an argument between 2 others, his junior researchers. Junior researcher Santos, a tall, gangly, and wired man, berating his equal, junior researcher Torres, who was a short and groggy woman. The small chamber around them was crowded with computers and other scientific instruments. A large shuttered window covered the wall that the equipment wasn't. The junior researchers barely acknowledged his presence as they squabbled.
Listen, you're gonna get errors if you're not being organized.
He gestured with his arms dramatically.
And Dr. Palma and I still have to read your notes.
Torres pinched her creased forehead, eyes shut tight.
Santos, I have a hell of a headache ever since I left home and got on this boat, and I really don't need this right now.
Oh, senor. Fine.
A short yet broad military man breached the door and marched through the conversation into the center of the room.
Rise and shine, eggheads. Here's the monster of the day.
He declared smugly. He pulled a lever on the wall and the shuttered window slowly clacked its way up. All 4 of the room's occupants peered through the thick glass, revealing a large, rusted chamber and a grim monstrosity within. A large, fleshy orb with a sickly black hue floated in the center of the chamber, unmoving. It was bigger than the notes had said, towering almost 3 times larger than a normal person, with short, tentacle-like protrusions scattered across its surface. A dark hole large enough for one to enter was present in the lower region of the sphere. It throbbed and undulated slowly, as if waiting for something.
My do.
Junior researcher Santos said, his shaking hand making the sign of the cross as he stood behind Dr. Palma's shoulder.
Damn.
Researcher Torres said, to the other side of Dr. Palma, her muzzy eyes opened wide with anticipation and fear.
We gotta work with that?
Yep, sure beats working with safe class shit, doesn't it? You've got a couple of days to tell me what the hell is going on with this thing.
General Mulhausen stated, pacing in front of the trio. Though he didn't have much in the way of height, he did have presence.
Don't waste too much time staring, you've got work to do.
Dr. Palma turned to the general.
What does it do?
He asked, slowly, carefully.
See for yourself.
Mulhausen bent over a microphone.
D1005, move closer to the anomalous object.
A haggard old man in his 50s stepped into view. He stepped towards the orb and looked fearfully at the window.
Look at the SCP, not me.
The old man turned hesitantly towards the object and took a couple more steps toward it. Silent seconds passed by.
Now pay attention.
The general said to the scientists, as if they weren't already fixated on the scene.
Move away from the anomalous object.
He ordered. The gaunt man stood in place, staring at the black growth.
D1005, move away from the object.
No.
The weary man declared, fearful but steadfast.
D1005, step back.
Tears began flowing down the withered face. The man took a few slight steps towards the object. Steps turned into strides as the man wailed. He shouted incomprehensibly, echoing throughout the room as he ran across the rusted chamber towards the blackened fleshy orb. The D-class disappeared into its dark orifice. The shouting stopped. The scientist stood and watched from the window, wordless.
He won't come back.
The general stated, unfazed.
None of them do.
The scientist still waited at the window for some time before turning away. Of them, only Dr. Palma had ever worked with anything dangerous, and even then he had only been a junior researcher at the time. He spoke first.
General.
What?
He asked proudly.
Why? Why did you do that? Why would you...
The test? I had to show you all what it does.
Mulhausen said flatly. The lackluster response provoked Dr. Palma, but he tried to keep it together. Come on, happy face. Just gotta keep it together. Keep it together.
Sir, there was no good reason for this test. We've all read the reports. We all know what it does.
He felt his voice rise with his temper.
You just killed a man. You killed him and there was no reason to kill him.
The general stepped closer to Dr. Palma. His face was tight and his eyes were wide and goading. Dr. Palma had to suppress the urge to cringe away from that stone-still face, inches away from his.
You're not in charge of this operation. I do what is right for the mission. There are a million different aspects of this mission that I am personally in charge of, so I make the calls, not you.
General Mulhausen said, sharp yet slow.
Remember your place and let me work.
The general moved away from Dr. Palma, heading towards the door, but before exiting, he did an about-face to a stiff military stance, a souvenir from his time in the service.
You will follow my orders and you will trust my orders. You're all going to make sure that thing stays contained.
He pointed to the window.
Or I'll throw you in it myself.
He shouted before turning again and exiting the room, leaving the trio stunned. Santos slowly began to speak.
You've read the files too, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Palma replied.
Maybe we should ask about the
Dr. Palma covered his face with his hand and sighed.
You're right.
He hesitantly moved out into the hallway.
General! General!
He called out. The general turned around and walked over, slowly but forcefully.
What do you want?
There's 4 unreported deaths in the reports. Did you also send them into that thing?
Dr. Palma shouted down the hall before the general could get close.
We don't know anything about it, and you're just feeding it bodies. You can't do that.
I can do whatever the hell I feel like I need to do to complete the mission. Now get the hell out of my face. That's an order.
The general shouted, staring down Dr. Palma with his eyes wide open and angry. Dr. Palma turned around and briskly walked away with anger in his stride, stuck with only questions and a sense of foreboding. Within the cramped confines of his room, Dr. Palma went over the events of the afternoon again and again. The man from the test, he had just started running towards that fleshy thing for no discernible reason. He listened to the audio recordings. He listened to them again. It was all gibberish being shouted by this poor old man. He slowed the recording down and then realized there was one word being repeated again and again, between the lines of slurred rambling. Home.
Man, I'm homesick. I miss my wife, Mathilde, too. She's a sweet girl.
In the dining hall, Rob and Dr. Palma sat talking in between bites of scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
Dr. Palma replied, his mind occupied.
Home.
Where was that? What was that? What makes someplace a home? Did he even really have a home? Rob chuckled.
Distracted?
Yeah, it's just been a lot these past few days.
Rob's teasing smile turned into a concerned frown.
That bad, huh? Usually you're all sunshine and jokes and stuff.
There's just so much wrong going on in this operation.
Dr. Palma lamented.
The general's acting more like a mob boss than a leader.
Rob responded with a long sip of coffee.
There's only so much you can do.
But aren't you worried it's all going to go south? We could all be in danger.
Like I said, only so much you can do.
A couple seconds passed awkwardly until Rob changed the subject.
You know, I've never heard anything about your home. Tell me about it. Got anyone waiting back there?
Chaos erupted in the back of Dr. Palma's mind. Shadowy figures yelled and fought. Somewhere a bottle broke. A scream. Crying.
Home? Nope. Nobody.
He said quickly before banishing the thoughts from his head.
A shame it.
Suddenly, the blaring alert of a klaxon deafened the room and cut Rob off. An alarm drenched the cafeteria in stale reds and piercing wails as the crimson outlines of other individuals started shifting and moving. gradually becoming more and more of a frenzy.
Shit.
Rob jumped up as Dr. Palma started running towards the door. Everyone was moving towards the main entrance, but the emergency exit was closer to them.
Come on, Rob!
Dr. Palma shouted. They fled through the escape door, running up the stairs that led to the deck. It was dark up above, an indifferent sky gazing down with its million shiny pinprick eyes. There were a few people up here, scurrying about on their way to the safe rooms. Rob was slowing down, distracted by something out of Dr. Palma's sight.
Rob! Run! We gotta get moving!
Rob slowed to a stop, turning and walking away.
I think I'll go home now.
Rob uttered in a neutral, too calm tone. His eyes were wide and his movements were sluggish.
Hey, we don't have time for this. Let's go!
No, I want to go home.
He continued staggering away from Dr. Palma to something unknown.
I'm going home now.
Dr. Palma looked back only to instantly turn his head and start running away. Behind him was that large, uneven circular outline. Despite its color mixed in with the pitch-black sky behind it, the shape was unmistakable. Dr. Palma only got a brief glimpse of its slowly waving tentacles and pulsing flesh before averting his gaze and turning to get away. He tried to grab Rob first, but Rob had left Dr. Palma as his staggering turned to uneven, frantic running.
I'm coming home. Daddy's coming home. I'm here, Bunny.
Rob was choked up, exclaiming his utterances between labored breaths and tears of joy.
I'm here, my sweet Matilda. Daddy's here.
And then the yelling stopped. Dr. Palma knew it meant Rob was gone. Into the fleshy orb that had devoured him whole. It only made him run faster to the nearest door, with the looming bridge closed. He sprinted with all his might, trying as hard as he could to not turn around, to not see the black growth that was approaching him, gaining on him. He grabbed the heavy bridge door and slammed it shut. Around him were the ship's controls, an array of dials and switches on a metal console. Moonlight shone through the window onto a dead navigating officer. Splattered blood painting the aged dashboard. The general loomed over the dead man, his menacing profile clad in darkness, a smoking gun in his hand.
So you stumbled upon me, Palma? Mighty stupid mistake. Mighty stupid.
Dr. Palma was too surprised to fully process the scene, only shouting,
Hold on! Don't shoot!
Oh, this?
The general observed his pistol for a moment, then put it in its holster.
I'll only need this if we come to a disagreement.
His eyes flashed with that final word.
And you'll agree with your general, won't you?
Dr. Palma kept shaking his head in confusion.
I don't know. I don't understand. What are you...
I think you'll be smart enough to come around to my side. Just watch me.
At that moment, the bridge door slammed open again with the timid, gangly figure of junior researcher Santos appearing in front of it. He was breathing heavily, rapidly mumbling prayers with each exhale.
That sick, godless thing is free. It's out there.
His eyes were wild and frantic as sweat fell from his brow. The general, as calm as a still tide, addressed his subordinate.
Santos?
Yes?
As your superior, I am ordering you to turn around.
His words were slow and delicate. It was so uncharacteristic that Dr. Palma could only watch as he tried to understand.
But...
Please, for your general, turn around.
Junior researcher Santos slowly turned back around and peered through the open metal door. Dr. Palma didn't have to look to know that the black orb was still out there, still waiting. Santos's eyes widened as his pupils dilated at the sight.
See? There's nothing bad here. We've decided to let you go home.
The general's words were uncomfortably kind.
We brought your home all the way here. Isn't that nice?
By the end of the sentence, he was enunciating with almost pointed care. Junior researcher Santos nodded slowly.
My home.
He began to smile warmly, like a child.
Yes, now before you can go home, I have one small task for you.
Yes, General.
Junior researcher Torres is still on the ship somewhere, and I bet you know where. We brought her home here, too. Could you please show her to her home? Then you can go home.
Yes.
And with that, Santos lumbered off into the night. Dr. Palma saw as the general turned back to him.
Do you get it now? I'm just taking everyone here home.
His voice had switched back to the low, gruff tone it had always taken before.
Now look out the door and help me. That's an order.
Dr. Palma saw the glazed look in the general's eyes looking right past him. An awkward way he was standing, almost too straight, and knew that this wasn't the general. He was gone, and only a shell remained. a shell filled with the wishes of the black tumor. The general's dead skin continued to stare at Dr. Palma with a cold malice seeping out from behind his eyes. Dr. Palma sprinted to the door, running as fast as he could to escape the general husk that was so close to him. It lunged at him as he ran, grabbing a leg as Palma tried to shake him loose.
Look at it!
He was screaming, his voice strained beyond any human's ability. His fingers tightened and his nails dug into Dr. Palma's ankle. Dr. Palma kicked at the general with his other foot, finally stomping down on his wrist. A cracking sound came with impact, and the hand finally let go. Dr. Palma kept running, keeping his head low to avoid looking at the large creature that was surely chasing him now. He fled to a staircase, down into the freighter, and thanked the heavens he had familiarized himself with the ship's map. He stumbled through corridor after corridor, passing dazed passenger husks who tried to latch onto him, each one empty and hostile. His room was just around the corner, if he could hide there, but the hallway in front of him ended abruptly. In front of him was the orb of black, twisted flesh squeezed impossibly tight in the medium-sized corridor. It completely filled up every corner, small tentacles reaching and grasping for whatever they could hold. Dr. Palma was face to face with a dark, foreboding void in its side. He turned to run but tripped on an exposed electrical cord. While getting back up, he saw the thing again, and the monster ceased to be a monster. It was his house, actually. His lovely family house back in Portugal, with the big window out front and the red door. His mom had always said the red made it lucky, and the gray paint and his family. He knew his family was inside, his mother, his father, his sister. They were in there. They were waiting for him. So he went home, and he was right. His mother and his father and his sister were there, standing in the living room, all perfect and happy to see him back. The living room was the same as he remembered it, and so was his family. They wanted to embrace him. His mom wanted a big hug. But then a shadow flickered across the dream. A hint of nightmare rose. Shadowy figures started yelling and fighting on the walls. Somewhere a bottle broke, a scream. His sister was crying. The voice of his father was yelling in his deep, slurred voice. The voice of his mother was begging and pleading. His family just stood there and smiled. They didn't move. They didn't blink. This wasn't his family, and this wasn't his home. His family was broken and shattered. The house had been sold. So where was his home? Lost in thought and confusion, his surroundings swirled and blurred together. Home was where his friends were and where his work was and where he lived every new day as an explorer of the unknown. Home was the foundation. So where was he? Everything melted away. The chairs and couches and tables turned brown and gray. The walls were a meaty red. He was in a barren apartment, but something was wrong. He looked at the table, the couch. Instead of wood and glass, he saw hair and bone, woven and nailed together intricately to create furniture. A leather reclining chair had faint veins still splayed across it. The walls pulsed. Then the shapes became more familiar. Dr. Torres' face peered out of the chair, flesh melded into flesh. Rob's eyes stared blankly from the wall, beady and white. An arm began to slowly reach out of the table, an amalgamation of skin and other body parts in the mockery of a limb. More began to sprout, like fast-growing meat flowers, clawing, reaching. The room tried to grab Dr. Palma from 100 different angles. It cried in 100 voices. He could hear Dr. Santos' voice, and Rob's too in the cacophony. Dr. Palma ran, out the door, out of the belly of the beast. He heard a loud humming increase in pitch as soon as he left, the walls lurching more and more. The eldritch globe crawled forward, every one of its sides squeezing against the rusty metal walls, pitch-black protrusions flailing wildly. Dr. Palma tripped again as he ran over the same electrical cord, causing a small rip in the insulative rubber. He had an idea. He might not have any weapons on hand, but he could make one. He grabbed the cord and yanked on it hard. Maybe it would fail. But it was the only chance he had. If he kept running, those possessed husks of the people he once knew would drag him back eventually. He yanked once, twice, thrice, and with the fourth, its electrical innards broke loose. The electrical wire is now free in his hands. He wasted no time and thrust it rapidly into the cramped black mass. The humming from it turned into a deafening screech as he let go. The orb compressed instantly, flesh folding in on itself as it sped past Dr. Palma, blasting through the air as it disappeared down the corridor. Dr. Palma approached the rusty door that it had been covering. He pulled out his key and unlocked the room. He looked around and saw the small closet space in the corner. He ran to it and pulled the door shut. Not taking any chances, he gripped the handle tightly and listened closely for any sounds, and he waited. Hours later, the door was broken open with a bang. Armed Foundation guards spilled into the room, opening the closet and revealing Dr. Palma. They kept their sights on its sole occupant at all times. Dr. Palma obliged. These men didn't have the same gear as the boat's team did, which meant the Foundation had found the ship. They were saving him. He may have had 6 guns aimed at him, but for the first time since he had gotten on the boat, he felt safe. He felt at home. I don't think that helped with my furniture conundrum. Not too bad of a way to go out, though. I'll have to remember that. Speaking of memory, let's talk computer memory. Being an object class Euclid, SCP-003 consists of 2 related components of separate origin, referred to as SCP-003-1 and SCP-003-2. SCP-003-1 appears to be composed of chitin, hair, and nails of unknown biology, arranged in a configuration similar to that of a computer motherboard. Testing reveals SCP-003-1 to predate earliest known circuit boards by a factor of thousands of years. SCP-003-1 is considered sentient but not actively dangerous except under certain conditions. SCP-003-1 was found on a stone tablet, SCP-003-2, on which it currently resides. The runes on SCP-003-2 are not part of any known language and emit pale, flickering light patterns. SCP-003-2 is controlled by a non-biological internal computer, the contents of which are mostly inaccessible without risk of damaging SCP-003-2. SCP-003-2 is capable of controlled emissions of radiation, including heat, light, and anomalous radiation types. SCP-003-2 contains an internal power source of anomalous nature, which appears to have been losing power since several centuries before discovery. It is considered probable that SCP-003-2 was created for the purpose of containing SCP-003-1. Partially interpreted data recovered from SCP-003-2 may refer to a past and/or potential future LK class restructuring event caused by SCP-003-1. SCP-003 was located by remote viewing team SRV-04 Beta. It appears possible that SRV-04 Beta was deliberately contacted by SCP-003-2. Other organizations have also been alerted of SCP-003's existence, possibly by similar means. Despite this activity, SCP-003-2 does not appear to be sentient, based on its lack of reaction to M03-Gloria analysis and procedures. When SCP-003 drops below the temperature of 35 degrees Celsius, both components react. First, SCP-003-1 enters a growth state characterized by an exponential increase in mass. This growth state consists of 2 stages. In both stages, SCP-003-1 partially fuels its growth by converting matter around it, starting with any surrounding inorganic material, including atmospheric elements, then non-living organic material, including cells of dead skin, hair, chitin, enamel, keratin, and other biological materials. The first stage is always the same. SCP-003-1 will first increase its mass, then take a form similar in shape to an ophoroid, a brittle star, of 15 meters in diameter, including what appears to be a central processor of 3 meters in diameter. It will form sensory organs that appear to scan its surrounding environment, and will partially convert the area around it to an unidentified anomalous substance. SCP-003-2 seems immune from conversion. The second stage describes a growth alteration which occurs when SCP-003 comes into contact with living organic material. SCP-003 appears to template itself off of the original material and will attempt communication with organisms that match its initial template or templates. In its second stage, SCP-003-1 may pause, slow, or change its growth, and will also convert inorganic and non-living organic elements into functionally similar structures while anomalously altering their physical makeup. While growth is consistent in the first stage, in the second stage, SCP-003-1's growth rate is diminished by 20 to 90% so long as SCP-003-1 remains in contact with living organic material. The percentage is determined by the complexity of the organisms in contact with SCP-003-1. SCP-003-1 appears to devote a large amount of processing power to analysis of living organic material. During each of SCP-003-1's growth stages, SCP-003-2 releases bursts of radiation that temporarily inhibit SCP-003-1's growth, or reverse this growth when the temperature of SCP-003-1 rises above 100 degrees Celsius. Similar radiation emissions have been replicated or recorded via other anomalous means. SCP-003-1's biology has been the subject of extensive study. Significant elements have been identified similar to SCP-1512, and SCP-2756, the latter two of which have no further confirmed connection with SCP-003-1 and no known connection with each other, and none of which are fully understood. Technically even less understood than SCP-003, thanks to the extensive cross-disciplinary research on the SCP-003 objects. To date, no convincing analysis has been put forward which satisfactorily explains SCP-003-1's connection to these SCP objects or others, nor its connection to modern technology beyond appearance, and potential mimicry via unknown mechanism. Addendum 003-01, acting on information gathered from linguistic analysis of SCP-003-2's runes and comparative data analysis, Research Team M03-Gloria has managed to establish a link between SCP-003 and for analysis of functions. SCP-003-1 must now be considered sentient and is to be kept a minimum of 1 kilometer from and the resulting byproduct at all times. Addendum 003-02. SCP-003-2's power loss has been exacerbated by the procedures performed by M03-Gloria. On orders of O5-10, M03-Gloria will continue procedures. Addendum 003-03. During M03-Gloria procedures, SCP-003-1 doubled its mass and began rapid structural growth. Temperature was immediately returned to 100 degrees Celsius. Growth and mass increase of SCP-003-1 continued for 9 minutes and 6 seconds, at which time a sustained radiation spike was produced by SCP-003-2. In response, SCP-003-1 returned to its normal state in 3 minutes and 39 seconds. New growth dissolved in the dusty residue which was collected for analysis. Both SCP-003-1 and SCP-003-2 ceased all detectable activity. SCP-003-2 did not resume activity until connected to external power source. SCP-003-2's runes glowed uniformly gray and did not resume normal activity for 3 hours. SCP-003-2 no longer appears to be able to maintain containment area at a temperature above 35 degrees Celsius without external power supplied by generators 003-III through IX. Addendum 003-04. The procedure detailed in Addendum 003-03 was repeated, and SCP-003-1 again entered a growth state. After 10 minutes and 13 seconds, SCP-003-2 once again produced a sustained radiation spike. SCP-003-1's growth stopped for 36 seconds, then resumed at its previous pace. On quadrupling its mass, SCP-003-1 formed a coherent outer shell and body. After appearing to scan its environment and partially converting its environment, SCP-003-1 then breached containment, entering the observation gallery where 9 members of M03-Gloria were present. On physical contact with team members, SCP-003-1 encompassed them in rapidly grown appendages and stopped growth for 15 minutes. SCP-003-1 then resumed growth and rearranged the component parts of the center of its form to the shape of a 3-meter-tall female humanoid, with peripheral tentacles shifting to extrude primarily from SCP-003-1's newly formed hair and spine. SCP-003-1 then produced rudimentary vocalizations in an apparent initial attempt to communicate with researchers. An unknown individual approached the compromised containment area in company of a full squad of agents. The individual claimed to be acting on orders of O5-10 and attempted communication with SCP-003-1. Following the incident, Agent Jackson of M03-Gloria successfully restored power to SCP-003-2 and activated backup generators to return the temperature to 100 degrees Celsius. SCP-003-1 returned to its normal state in 21 minutes and 7 seconds, and was successfully recontained without incident. All 9 members of M03-Gloria affected by SCP-003-1 were afterwards found to be physically unharmed, with no residual effects besides psychological trauma. The converted materials of SCP-003's former containment area did not dissolve and are now under analysis. Addendum 003-05. In light of the previous incident, O5-10 was removed from the O5 Council by a joint decision of O5 and O5. M03-Gloria procedures have been indefinitely suspended. Special Access Program M03-Gloria required. Transcript of Incident Report A21-B, Cycle 8, for dissemination to O5 Command and Staff. Interviewer and present O5-2, O5-5, O5-10, and Staff. Interviewed Dr. Tilda David Moose, M03-Gloria Lead. Excerpt 35A.
She tried to talk to us. We all heard her voice in our heads, in sort of a half language we couldn't fully understand. Some of the others passed out immediately. I lasted a little longer, but it wasn't because of mental fortitude. It's just that she was trying to tell us different things. She showed Jones a replay of all the memories of everything Jones has ever felt anything about. All over the course of a few minutes, she ripped free of the resources apart and put them back together again, unharmed. She doesn't understand human emotion or pain, or very much about how we experience the world. Yes, I would say containment procedures are necessary. Listen, she wants to remake the world into a paradise filtered through her own alien understanding of paradise. But still, a paradise designed for us, for humanity. She would be happy to make a paradise for any sufficiently complex organism she comes across first. Anything with a complex enough mind to accept her, say a dog or a horsefly. If she breaches again, we have to be there first. What would it be like? I don't know. She shows us images. Not quite images. I can see them in my head, but they're not pictures. The closest thing I could think of is what you see when you close your eyes suddenly and tightly, but brighter and more complex. The images have metallic sounds associated with them, and the sensory details that we don't have the words or concepts to describe. The whole effect felt like words of some kind. I believe she wanted to see what we could understand, so she could understand us. She didn't have time to finish analyzing us. I don't know what would have happened if she had.
I, for one, am intrigued and looking forward to seeing what happens the next time the motherboard breaches. And now, we'll take a quick break to listen to a beautiful, haunting melody played on the piano. Here's Broken Piano by Vivek. What a lovely piece. Next up, if there's a key, then there must also be a lock. Being an object class Euclid, SCP-004 consists of an old wooden barn door, SCP-004-1, and a set of 12 rusted steel keys, SCP-004-2 through SCP-004-13. The door itself is the entrance to an abandoned factory in Chronological History. July 2nd, 1949. A group of 3 juveniles trespassing on federal property near find the door. According to their testimony, they found a set of rusted keys in an iron lockbox and determined what door the keys unlock. The juveniles are taken into custody after they contact Sheriff when one of their friends, SCP-004-CAS-01, goes missing. July 3rd, 1949, local authorities find the severed right hand of SCP-004-CAS-01, 8 kilometers from SCP-004-1. Other parts of SCP-004-CAS-01's body are found scattered as far as 32 kilometers from the factory. Under interrogation, the apprehended juveniles tell authorities that upon opening the door with one of the keys, SCP-004-CAS-01 was torn into several pieces, each of which disappeared. At this point, the SCP Foundation takes over the investigation. July 4th, 1949, SCP Agent obtains the keys from the local authorities to begin testing. Tests show that SCP-004-2 through SCP-004-13 all fit into a single lock on the large barred door. 12 Class D personnel are assigned to test the effects of the door. Of the 12 test subjects, each trying a different key to enter the room, only 2 survive. Opening the door with any key except SCP-004-7 or SCP-004-12 caused the test subjects to be torn apart in multiple directions. However, no dismembered parts were found until later. At the time of writing, only 2 parts of each subject has been recovered, with the exception of the subject using SCP-004- whose pieces were scattered in close proximity. The others have, for all intents and purposes, vanished from existence. Of the 2 surviving subjects, only one, having used SCP-004-7, returned unharmed. The other came back in a near catatonic state, able only to remove himself from the room and then collapse on the floor, and had to be restrained to prevent him from gouging out his eyes. See Appendix A, Mental Health Effects of SCP-004. The subject using SCP-004-7 said that he had entered a large room, and possibly big for the size of the attached building. After his exit, SCP-004-1 was propped open and an armed squad of Level 3 personnel entered. The size of the room is impossible to measure, and the door frame and the individuals in the room are the only part of the room that can be felt or illuminated. July 16th, 1949. The juvenile suspects and sheriff are terminated. August 2nd, 1949 is declared a hazardous area due to unexploded ordnance and fences erected in order to prevent civilian ingress. Tests to determine safety of exposure to environment behind SCP-004-1 begin. December 1st, 1950. Space-time anomalies resulting from exposure to SCP-004 are confirmed. Testing is suspended until further notice. July 2nd, The unaccounted for remains of SCP-004-CAS-01 appear unexpectedly outside SCP-004-1. Despite being killed decades before, the remains of SCP-004-CAS-01 are not decomposed in any manner and are still warm to the touch. Blood remains uncoagulated. The remains are remanded for testing. July 4th, The unaccounted for remains of one of the 12 original test subjects appear in similar manner to those of SCP-004-CAS-01. The remains have been designated SCP-004-CAS-02. Records suggest that both SCP-004-CAS-01 and CAS-02 use SCP-004- March 21st, 1999. With the massive proliferation of nuclear weapons in World War III only years away, construction has begun on a site inside SCP-004-1. The site is to stock supplies for person days. April 21st, 1999 has ordered the site inside SCP-004-1 to be expanded to include emergency storage for all mobile SCP specimens and a petabyte database for the storage of all SCP data. The facility is now referred to as Site-62. September 25th, 2000. Site-62 is operational. Labs and containment units are complete and can contain the most dangerous specimens. Backup of the SCP database has begun. January 25th, 2001. Due to time anomalies, see space-time anomalies below. All personnel working at Site-62 are now required to reside on site permanently. Families of personnel are to be informed that loved ones perished in an industrial accident. Cloned bodies have been prepared for funeral. August 14th, 2003. Massive power outage across northeast United States and through Canada. Due to the initial failure of multiple SCP generators, Site-62 was without power for 53 minutes. During those 53 minutes, those on site were completely without any source of light. They reported sensing creatures and people, although no abnormal entities could be seen or felt. Selective facility personnel were allowed to read Appendix A and said the creatures sensed were of humanoid size, but otherwise similar to the massive green creature described. Space-time anomalies. SCP-004 seems to propagate spatio-temporal anomalies. Personnel leaving the facility report losing time. Those who have been in the site for weeks insist that they had only been in the facility for several days. And records of work completed and supplies consumed support their claims. Other temporal anomalies involve SCP-004-2 through -13, especially the reappearance of SCP-004-CAS-01 and SCP-004-CAS-02, exactly years after using SCP-004- has been assigned to investigate all aspects of these time anomalies. Spatial anomalies include the impossibly large dimensions of the area opened by SCP-004-7. Similarly, the 2003 blackout incident suggests that there exists an alternate plane of existence within the same space that Site-62 occupies. Additional notes. Testing on SCP-004 reveals that 10 of the keys open SCP-004-1 on a dimension where the laws of physics and topology are significantly different than those of our home dimension. Test subjects meeting these hostile conditions are torn apart, their body parts deposited in various locations, only 3 of which have been verified to be on Earth. Material deposited at 2 of these points appear immediately. Material deposited at the 3rd appears exactly years into the future. The other 7 locations are currently unknown. Current testing focuses on 2 avenues of research. The first is finding ways to survive SCP-004's hostile topologies. The second suggests that SCP-004-2 through -13 may open doors other than SCP-004-1. Appendix A. Mental health effects of SCP-004-12. All Class D personnel using SCP-004-12 return in a catatonic state, unable to speak. Some may have enough energy left to try to claw out their eyes. Of the 16 subjects, only 4 have survived. Only 1 has regained speech. Following long-term psychotherapy, he was able to tell the psychiatrist that he saw a massive green creature, so large that much of its body extended beyond his field of view. He reported innate fear and sudden recognition, as if it were something buried deep in his primal fears, and forced implantation of incomprehensible memories. Subject displays acute anterograde and retrograde amnesia. Appendix B. Additional information. Item number SCP-004-14. Date of discovery, September 2nd, 1950. Origin of object. Object was discovered elsewhere in factory area, in the previously undiscovered manager's office. Description: Object appears as a large, unvarnished wooden box. The box may be unlocked by the safe key, SCP-004-7, as well as 5 of the unsafe keys. See document SCP-004-1. Upon unlocking SCP-004-14 with SCP-004-7, the box opens automatically on hinges. The volume of the space inside is precisely 5 times greater than the outer dimensions imply. Items placed within while the lid remains open do not affect the weight or any other properties of the box. When the lid is closed and locked, however, all items inside vanish irretrievably. Personnel locked inside the box are also irretrievable, although losing personnel in this fashion appears to affect significantly the dreams experienced by... Makes me wish my set of keys worked like that. Some people have all the luck. Anyway, that wraps up tonight's program. Hope you get lots of sleep if you can, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks for listening.